Move into topic 2, shall we? We're going to be talking across the Spider-Verse. Now, I explained this pre-recording, but as with all movie reviews, we are going to give a general review first. So just my thoughts on the movie, how I felt about it, all that jazz. If you haven't seen the movie yet, because it literally dropped on Thursday night, totally fair. You don't want to be spoiled. This is your time, or after that, this is your time to exit. We'll see you later. But please come back to this at your leisure, and then you can hear all the fun stuff and spoilers there. When we do and get in the spoiler section, we're not going to go through in-depth plot-wise what happened in the film, just some cool things that we might have seen or that I thought were cool, whatever it is, all that fun stuff there. So, I'll give you a clear warning when we are going into spoiler section, and we're going in depth, nothing held back there. So, there you go. So, Across the Spider-Verse dropped. As of recording this past weekend, we got our sequel to Into the Spider-Verse from Sony Pictures Animation. And, man, this movie was freaking amazing. It was amazing. A lot of fun was had throughout. Into the Spider-Verse had its praise when it came out, just the different animation styles and the fun story that we were telling with Miles and introducing him to a more mainstream audience. And obviously these other characters like Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Gwen and Spider-Ham, and I don't remember the mech spider girl. But taking these characters that, typically we don't know and bring them to the limelight and giving Miles a great story was a lot of fun. But this one just takes it and boosts it by 100. Granted, there's a lot of Easter eggs and hidden things where if you didn't know about certain aspects, that adds just layers onto the cake. But in terms of a story that they tell in this movie, this is really good. It's a coming of age story for Miles, obviously being a few years older from the previous movie, seeing him deal with his own issues of growing up and trying to be independent, but his parents still want him to be the child, obviously, that they raised growing up, and him trying to break out, do his own thing, do what he feels is right. They just did a fantastic job with it, and how the story builds in tenseness and I guess you could say stress. When we end up finishing this movie, I would hearken it akin to a Star Wars, and stick with me here. It feels like an episode 5. Not that it's that grim of a fate where we leave episode 5 of Star Wars, but that build and that momentum from episode 5 where we leave things going into Star Wars episode 6, this feels like that. Now, granted, we knew this was going to be a 2-parter going into it, at least the people who are, really paying attention to this stuff, we knew this was going to be a 2-parter going into it. But I feel like this does a great job of establishing a story, building a story, and not leaving us at a disappointing part, but leaving us wanting more, and in the best way possible. Not oh, that's where they ended it, and now I'm just sitting here pissed. It's just feeding that excitement for everyone, and I just loved it. I had a great time with it. Like I said, the Easter egg stuff is going to add extra layers for people who know that stuff, but I don't think that detracts from the story they're telling here, where if you don't know necessarily or get a lot of the references or even some of the references here, where you're going to be at a disadvantage and not entertained by this thing, I think it's just similar to the MCU and any of these things where they have a bigger universe in play here. I think it's just an extra layer of fan service for these people who have kind of invested, I guess you could say, outside of this, and kind of rewards them for their knowledge. But it doesn't It's not going to leave others in the dust where they're so confused because of certain things being involved or referenced, that the experience is limited or lower from them, I think is what I'm trying to say. So, I think it's a great and amazing movie. I'm really debating going to see it again, to be honest. Yeah, great movie. If you had even the slightest interest of going, definitely go and enjoy yourself. We are now going to go into spoiler sections for Across the Spider-Verse. So if you have not seen the movie yet and you want to head out and not get spoiled on things, now's your time. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you. Come back later and hear what I thought about it afterwards. If you don't care or you already saw it, stick around because we're going to go into spoilers. And 3, 2, 1. Holy crap. There was a lot of Easter eggs in this movie. As we knew, I mean, you saw it in the trailers how many Spider-Men and Spider-People are in this film, and they definitely went crazy with that. I'm sure like 80% to 90% of the Spider-People we saw in the film were probably made up just for this movie, just because you had to fill the space with them. But seeing versions of them, like the Insomniac Spider-Man being in there for a second, seeing the comic book flat panel Spider-Man, seeing Ben Reilly's Scarlet Spider-Man, or Scarlet Spider? Whichever one the clone one is, with the dope-ass hoodie. He's in there. We see the return of Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Ham and the robot one. I don't remember her name. I apologize. Seeing them, we see... who else did we see? There was a Spider-Woman in there, which I don't remember her actual name. I think it's just Spider-Woman, but I remember having her action figure. She's got like a black and white suit in there. Seeing her in there is fantastic, and I'm sure there's plenty of others that I missed and I'm forgetting. Really cool to see and just be like poking out or pointing at different ones, but like, oh my god, that one's in there, that one's in there. And then you get the gimmicky and goofy ones, which we've seen in that second trailer of like the Spider Dinosaur and the Spider Cat one, which I'll admit I laughed way too hard at. Just a lot of fun seeing those guys in there, and obviously seeing the more established ones that they did introduce in this one, like the Spider-Woman who's pregnant in her universe, and then you get Spider-Man 2099 being somewhat of a villain in this one, along with the Indian Spider-Man Pravitar. Yikes, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and I do apologize, but he looked amazing. And for someone who hasn't delved super deep into the Spider-Verse and all of the different Spider-Men that are here, coming off of Secret Wars 2, back when, what was that, 2018? Yikes. And the different like comic lines that they did put out during that time of like 5-issue runs, like you had the Secret Wars line that was like 12 or something like that, but then you got these like mini stories of the different multiverses that they were telling. So there was the 2099 universe where you got to see all the different superheroes in that age or that time period, and then you got the Spider-Verse ones where you had these different Spider people crossing over with each other, similar to how these movies play out. So seeing that and knowing a little bit about them, or getting the glimpse there and seeing them here, was just fun. It was very exciting to see them here and presented in this medium format. Let's go with that one. That's probably a more accurate word. So cool to see them. We got our first glimpse at a live action Prowler. As we got, Childish Gambino, what's his name? Donald Glover. We got to see him in there as Prowler, captured. Granted, it was short, but I will tell you, the theater I was in, everybody popped for that. That was cool to see. We got a reference to the MCU and Disney's canon with Doctor Strange and that hocus pocus that's going on there. Not in terms of character, but just a shout out from 2099, which I believe is in one of the trailers. So you get that, like, just that tie-in of like all the things that are going on. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what other cool things there were. Oh, okay. If we're going to talk about Insomniac Spider-Man, we got to see Genki real quick, and we see him playing Spider-Man Remastered on his PlayStation 5 while Miles comes in and out of the dorm like twice. So yeah, a lot of different references, just a lot of fun, a lot of good stuff there. Like I said, I'm sure I'm missing a bunch or just not remembering some, but it was a good time throughout there, and very entertaining. In terms of story, so we had seen in the trailers that they were showing us the Spot, and how the Spot was kind of like robbing this bodega and was kind of goofy what was going on with his power set. And I'm sure most of us, we thought, okay, the Spot is just going to be kind of this gimmick villain that is going to be like your day-to-day thing that Miles is going to deal with at the beginning of the movie with the whole school discussion and him not being at the meeting right away. It's just him day-to-day saving the town. The fact that they took the Spot, which, granted, I don't know anything from in comic lore or comic history, I just know them from this movie, took him, first of all, integrated him into the first story, which I saw this with my buddy Billy, and like the backstory they gave him, you threw this at a bagel at me while you were at Oscorp, and then he was there present when the reactor blew up, which made him into the Spot. Like, it wasn't, stories have done this before where they take characters in the sequel or other stuff, a la, if we were going to talk a recent example, Fast X right now, right? Jason Momoa's character was apparently in Fast 5, and like that's his character motivation here. A lot of movies do it where they'll call back to previous films and be like, oh, this is where I turned bad, or where things went sour for me and why I built this reputation. Good, smart storytelling, like good storytelling. But sometimes it's like retconned in where they kind of have to shoehorn in or do new footage in the situation. But they must, I don't know if they planned for this, I assume they did, but if you go back to Into the Spider-Verse, you can see the moment when Miles throws a bagel and hits a guy in the head, and it just made me laugh of like, wow, that actually was in there. It wasn't just something stupid that they just happened to say like, oh yeah, I happened to be present there. You know, granted, they could have just found it funny or found something to kind of resonate with and then build off of there. But making him into the prominent villain in here, totally did not expect that. So Spot, when we first see him, doesn't really understand his powers and doesn't really seem to have a lot of control in there. But gradually he learns that he can get more powerful over time by jumping from universe to universe and kind of causing this reaction that triggered his powers initially, and adding on to it and kind of making himself more powerful with each time, and seeing him be the prominent trigger or effect for what's going to happen eventually to Miles' dad, was an interesting take. I'm sure a lot of us just thought Spider-Man 2099 was going to be the main villain here, chasing down Miles, being this anomaly, and trying to do what he thinks is right in terms of protecting the multiverses and the different universes where the Spider-Men are and all the citizens there. But that's, while still a prominent part, just isn't the big bad in terms of what's going to happen in the grand scheme of things. Now, granted, we don't get to that point. We get to the tip of the iceberg where the Spot has arrived back in Miles' universe. His dad's still okay now, but we have this, canon events that every Spider-Man goes through. So they showed it a little bit, and in showing it, we also got callbacks to other live-action Spider-Man. Once again, we didn't see Tom Holland's, but we did see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man dealing with some of these canon events. So we see, like, each of them has a Uncle Ben moment. Each of them has this canon event, which they're focusing on right now with a close police captain dies or something happens to them which will affect the hero. So whether it's a lot of them, it's Officer Stacy or Captain Stacy rather, his passing, and then Miles will be his dad because his dad is becoming captain. They'll all have that. They didn't really make a big point of it, but they showed like all of them will have a moment with Venom where they have to go through that moment of the suit and stuff like that. I'm curious. I doubt it. I'm curious if we'll get that moment with Miles. If they do, probably not in these sequence of movies, the 3. But I was just like, oh, nice that they pointed that out. And there might have been one other one, but I'm not sure. But essentially, if these canon moments don't happen, then it puts the whole universe in danger. The way they explain this is Spider-Man 2099. In his universe, the officer died, and I think his family died. I don't know if they're connected. Somehow, family's gone. He feels awful about it. And in turn, he finds another universe where he died instead, and he like takes the place of his former self in that universe because he wants to be with his family. And unfortunately, because things changed in that universe, that whole universe got like wiped out or fizzled out because it wasn't correct. I don't know if this is a TVA reference or what to the MCU, but that universe ceases to exist. So he kind of goes through that loss again. So the whole point of this is like to stop Miles from messing with this canon event. Unfortunately, he did mess with Spider-Man India's in saving the officer there and the child, and they're going to try and save that universe, but there's no guarantee. So that's the whole purpose here with 2099. He's trying to stop that. And obviously we get a glimpse at the end of the film of like, oh, there's hope for these universes to continue on because of the change. We see in Gwen's universe herself, like her dad retires or quits because of their altercation of her revealing her identity as Spider-Gwen, and he decides to quit and not be on the force anymore, and that universe seems to be persisting. And as we see at the very, very end of Miles going back to the universe where the spider came from and bit him initially, making him the anomaly, we see that universe is still going. We see that Uncle Eric, whoever the Prowler is, he's still there. And in turn, that Miles, which probably the biggest reveal and like shocker of like, oh, whoa, we're doing this, is the Prowler in that universe. So we're building up this enemy in the third one where it's going to be Miles versus Miles, Spider-Man versus Prowler, and dealing with this other universe while trying to get back to his correct one to save his dad. But that universe seems to be persisting without a Spider-Man even being present because of the spider not being there and then somehow getting transported to Miles' universe to create that anomaly as well. So yeah, it's going to be... We see that maybe 2099's thesis or what he thinks is fact is not 100% correct. My thinking of why maybe that universe specifically blew up, went wrong, is because he himself of a different universe inserted himself into that one. Maybe that's what caused the hocus pocus and breaking. Similar to Miles interfering with Spider-Man India's canon event, like because of his interference of a different multiverse affecting this one, then that causes that one to break. Obviously we don't have a clear answer, but that seems to be the case, just because we see these other universes so far. Fine, I guess if we want to combat that, then you're going to be like, well, why didn't the spider that bit Miles break everything? Fair, but there was a corrective event in that Spider-Man dying. I don't know if that was the way of being like, ooh, correct course type thing. Not sure. I guess time will tell there. But it's been going fine for years, so who knows. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun. Loved this movie. Loved this movie. Different art styles were great. I love with Spider-Gwen stuff because we get her kind of more backstory or a little bit more in depth with her in the intro. I love how that alludes right to her comics, of the like very melted pastel looking colors, and color scheme. Just really appreciate that as once again someone who delved into those comics at least at the beginning. Those early comic covers will definitely show you like though that's where they got their inspiration from. Just really appreciated that. Seeing her in the band, seeing the Mary Janes there. What else? They had some other stuff. I would say the only world that was a little concerning, and granted, this could have just been a small thing and like not everybody's going to notice, when Miles as Prowler gets revealed at the end and the two of them are face to face, a little bit of frame drops there. And usually that's not a thing I notice because I'm done with frame rate. But that one seemed to chug a little bit. And just surprised that happened. I don't know if it's supposed to be the animation style of that world because it is a little bit more 3D-esque compared to some of the other ones. Not that they aren't 3D, but this one goes a little harder, I would say, on that. But when they came face to face, yeah, it dropped a little bit. So I'm not sure what happened there. But visually, everything else looks stunning. Everything looks unique. Everything is bright and vibrant, or has a distinct look to it, which is appreciated. And as we see in the end, we're going to kind of get a meshing of two worlds with the old Into the Spider-Verse team and the new Across the Spider-Verse team, seeing them come together. So excited to see characters of old in the first one come back, like a Spider-Man Noir. Will Nick Cage come back? I don't know. And the robotic, like mech Spider-Man. And then we get the new team with Spider-Man India, Spider-Punk, or Punk Spider-Man, which was fantastic, just being all against, like, anti-establishment and everything. He turned out to be way more entertaining of a character than I thought. A little hard to understand in the beginning of the film in terms of dialogue, but he definitely grew on me, became a favorite in there, and his art style is cool, being this, like, I don't know how to describe it, but like very comic booky and like almost like cut out paper. Like there's always borders around stuff, like his guitar specifically. I just thought that was neat. And then seeing the return of Peter Parker, what was it, Peter B. Parker, was that his full name? And seeing May Day, maybe just May, but the little baby was adorable. Seeing her zip around, and her little knit mask that she would pull down, was just great. So, yeah, fantastic movie. Definitely looking forward to obviously the next one, but looking forward to maybe even going to see this one again and seeing what else maybe I can point out, because obviously there's a lot of Spider-Men in this movie. I think Spectacular Spider-Man was supposed to be in this. I'm not sure if he was, along with there was a Fox Kids Spider-Man that had like a very dark suit, bright red lines, and like a web cape. I don't recall seeing him, but I thought he was supposed to be in this one. I know they joked around about Japanese Spider-Man. Don't recall seeing him either. I thought that would have been more of like a gimmicked moment like they did with the comic panel Spider-Man being flat. Kind of make it more of a thing. I don't think we saw Dancing Spider-Man, like the Tobey Maguire, like, I don't remember if that was the first one or the second one that tease was there. I don't know. I'm not sure. But overall, Across the Spider-Verse, fantastic, amazing movie, a lot of fun. Being its own separate story, the Into the Spider-Verse storyline they're telling here, definitely open to a more general audience, I would say. Like I said, the references and the Easter eggs just going to add layers on top of for the people who have been invested in the Spider-Man lore for a while. But it's a strong story that they're telling here. Definitely compelling story that they're telling here. Simple if you break it down to its basic core elements, but it works really well, and just happy to see that it's delivering. Like, I had a great opening weekend. I think the best of this year so far. So, props to these guys. Obviously, animation is no joke, but to do it in a bunch of different styles and have this amount of characters on the screen all at once, just props to the team there, and looking forward to see what they bring to the table next. Yeah. Well, guys, this has been another episode of The Wait, where we talking about podcasts. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011. Drop a follow over there. You'll get notified when we go live with the podcast or stream, so you can join the chaos and the fun like Dio and Jeff did today and have some fun on the conversation, or with the conversation with us. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video in MP3 for amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, any way you can support the show: likes, comments, shares, reviews, whatever it may be. May seem small, but it does help the channel grow immensely. So if you have the time to do that and you could do that, we would appreciate you greatly. Hope you guys had a good time with this podcast today. We're talking some video games, talking some movies. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will see you guys on the next one. Take care.